The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 21st chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Early in the morning, when Jesus returned to the city, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the side of the road, he went to it and found nothing on it at all but leaves. Then he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they were amazed, saying, "How did the fig tree wither at once?" Jesus answered them, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only will you do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be lifted up and thrown into the sea,' it will happen. Whatever you ask for in prayer with faith, you will receive." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. It's early. It's that up before dawn, faintly twilight, all the colors still shades of gray, early. It's the early that the anxious and unsleeping dread, fearing what the new day might unravel. It's the early that the secure and rested await, eager for new ventures to break with the dawn. It's the early of shameful crimes and the early of new life arising. It's so very early. And that's when we first meet Jesus today, a time cloaked with danger and promise. And it's not just when we meet him, but where. Jesus is on the road between two places. Behind him is Bethany, where he slept, home of friends, a safe haven for Galileans like him. Ahead lies Jerusalem, where he returns, goal of the faithful, the temple walls and holy heights. Just yesterday, Jesus arrived there like any pilgrim, but soon overturned tables and drove out sellers. Do you remember? And later still dared to heal those in need, who then praised his mercy. Such deeds enraged the elite. So he returned back to Bethany. But now, so very early, Jesus goes back to the city, looming and menacing. Jesus is on that road, the passage between shelter and peril. In that place, at that hour, of the many things Jesus surely feels, Matthew tells only one. He hungers. It's not the craving of the empty belly, but the desire of the faithful heart. It's hunger we've seen before in this gospel. After 40 days of desert fasting, Jesus hungered, and the devil tested. On the Sabbath, in the fields, with his disciples, Jesus hungered, and the Pharisees accused. It's that hunger Jesus feels now in this place, at this hour, a hunger that directs your steps and leaves you vulnerable. It's the hunger of which Jesus preached on another mountain. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. With such craving for mercy and justice, in that place, at that hour, Jesus comes to a tree, and so begins about the oddest wonder he ever performed. Somewhere along the 2 miles between Bethany and Jerusalem, in the dimness before dawn, Jesus comes to a fig tree, lush with foliage, barren of fruit. Without warning, he curses that hapless tree, not just for now, but forever. What happens next is jarring and complete. The whole tree withers in an instant. As if to underscore this, the disciples who see it then repeat the same phrase. The whole fig withers in an instant. But now, their words take the form of a question. How did this happen? This is where today's reading starts to run aground, not due to Matthew's story, but the way we hear it. For centuries of Christian interpretation of this event, we have shifted the focus. Instead of the disciples' how, the question has been changed to why. Why did the whole fig wither in an instant? Or more pointedly, why did Jesus make that happen? It just doesn't seem to make sense. And so we ask why, to hunt for an absent explanation. We ask why, trying to grasp a Jesus whose ways are not neatly contained. Why did Jesus curse a tree during a season when leaves were expected but fruit was not? Why would hunger lead him to act this way when earlier in this gospel, after the desert fasting, he resisted the lure of bread? Why this one solitary show of destruction from a person otherwise known for forgiveness and healing? Cursing the fig tree seems so out of character for Jesus. Arbitrary, vengeful, selfish, overdone. We ask why, to find motives and reasons. But friends, why is a luxury question of the insulated, speculative mind with plenty of time to ponder because nothing else seems all that urgent. Such was not the case for the disciples. On the road with Jesus, on the way toward a fate he 3 times foretold, matters were a bit more pressing. When the whole fig withered in an instant, they didn't have time for why, but desperately hungered to know how. They weren't seeking a technical explanation or trade secret. No, theirs was the more urgent question of agency. How did such a sign come to pass? By what means? And so, in this way, their how question is much like the sneering accusation of the temple leaders that would come later that same day. By what authority are you doing these things? How did Jesus act as he did? But as I said, for much of church history, this how was replaced by the easier question, why? As a result, while oceans of ink have been spilled on various meanings of the cursed fig tree, what Jesus actually then replied to his disciples is typically overlooked as editorial cut and paste. Asking only why, the withered tree becomes just a symbol. Maybe for the desolate faith or leaders or nation of Israel, maybe for the deadly ways of the empire, maybe for these barren days in contrast to the abundant age to come. And there may be some truth in those views, but they also sound kind of neat and remote, like a puzzle you've solved and can now safely put away. The how, asked by the disciples, is not so lightly dismissed. So for his hungry friends who trod his path right up to this perilous hour, Jesus directly replies. But spoiler alert, the answer will shake you to the core. His friends ask, "How did this happen?" And Jesus says, "Have faith without doubt." Sounds like pious frosting to me. But listen more carefully. The faith of which Jesus speaks isn't the grudging assent given to a far-fetched idea because finally we've been persuaded. It is instead faith as total risk of self, trusting without guarantee or backup plan. And this faith happens without doubt. Me diakratheta in Greek. No debate, no dispute, no wavering, no hesitation. So for many of us, it's a kind of faith like we've never known. A faith that leaves you hungry. And there's something more troubling still. Remember, Jesus didn't just say, "Have faith without doubt," but if you have faith without doubt, then you can do as I have done to the fig tree and more besides. Even the mountains will hear your word. Every prayer shall happen. Really? Really? Is he nuts? That such faith would empower us to be just like Jesus, that nothing would be beyond us, that we would truly hunger for mercy and justice as did he. Is that really something that we want? It's so much easier to dismiss this, to stick with the simpler questions, to treat the barriers in our life and this world with a kind of resigned finality, to act as if the truth-telling, mountain-moving faith like this isn't just unlikely, but probably unreal. And so, if you're thinking like that, maybe like me, you've just learned to accommodate. Like the fig tree beside the road, we come upon the barren places in our lives, old habits and sad excuses, and just learn to accept that, well, that's the way it is. Just make do, play the cards you've been dealt. Or when we see the mountains of evil on the horizon around us in our wider world, white privilege and despoiled environment and political violence and more, we learn to regard these as necessary evils, facts of life, surely beyond our power. More often than not, we cannot imagine a faith without doubt that could change things one little bit. And so, in a perverse bit of self-fulfilling prophecy, we give up and let such fraud persist. But Jesus answers directly his wandering, wondering disciples about how such things could be otherwise. Jarring words that today we blessedly overhear. There is a faith without doubt, a trust without wavering, a stride without stumbling that comes as a gift from the one who raised Jesus and invites all his hungry friends to trust in that risen life. Faith without doubt is our holy resistance to all the ways we give up and give in. As with Jesus, it's the power to tell the truth and root out harm and end our fruitless ways. As with Jesus, it's the power to declare hope for all, not as a vague wish, but a realized prayer that God commends and assures. Dear friends, right now, this day is still very early. At the start of this year, with fresh faces and renewed dreams, it's still early enough for us to make how our question for the days ahead. Not how will I finish all this work, or how can I pay my bills, or how might this ever work out, as important as those all are. No, deeper still, let our real question be, how can faith, without doubt, unfold here for you, for me, for us, for all? I assure you, it will not happen by our good intentions or just trying harder. From this strangest of stories, Jesus shows that unwavering faith is a gift from God. That's the how we really need to know. And as for answering the rest of the how in our daily lives, that will be our joyful duty this year. In resisting despair, in offering hope, in hunger for mercy and justice that our Lord knew deep in his heart along a distant road on a day that began so very early